Welcome to Trial Lawyer Prep. What if you could hang out with trial lawyers and jury consultants? Ask them about connecting with clients and juries more effectively. Then take strategies, tactics, and insights to increase your success. Each week, Elizabeth Larrick takes an in-depth look at how to regain touch with the everyday world, understand the emotional burden of your clients and juries, and use focus groups in this process. Elizabeth is an experienced trial lawyer, consultant, and founder of Larrick Law Firm in Austin, Texas. Her goal is to help you connect with juries and clients in order to improve your abilities in the courtroom. Now, here's Elizabeth.
Hello, and welcome back to the podcast, Trial Lawyer Prep. I am your host, Elizabeth Larrick, and I am excited for my guest today. He is making history in this podcast today. He is coming in as a defense lawyer, but let me tell you, y'all, he has a very clever and amazingly helpful tool he's going to talk to us about. But before we jump in, let me introduce my guest, Karl Seelbach. Hello, and welcome to the podcast.
Well, thank you very much, Elizabeth, for having me on. And I really like how you set the bar very low for me by introducing me as a personal injury defense lawyer. Anyone listening probably has strong opinions or at least maybe low expectations for this episode. So to go but up from here.
Well, that's true. Although, that's how we met. So we met doing a case against one another, and it's been several years. I think you were with a different firm and you guys went out on your own, and that's awesome. And then now you've created this other really cool product that we're going to talk about. But I want to give you a little shot, a little time to kind of tell us a little bit about yourself. I know you're in Austin just like I am. So, tell the group a little bit about kind of what you do and what brought you to this podcast.
Yeah, so I haven't always been a personal injury defense attorney. I often joke that I'm actually a plaintiff's lawyer trapped in a defense firm. I went to law school to be a plaintiff personal injury lawyer. That's kind of what I thought I wanted to do and what I kind of aspired to do. I grew up kind of surrounded by plaintiff personal injury attorneys. My dad does safety expert witness work, and I met a lot of trial lawyers growing up in Henderson, Texas, who I respected and still respect, and that was kind of my first exposure to law. So anyway, since then, I went to law school, ultimately started at a big firm, Winstead, a big general purpose defense firm doing all sorts of things, everything from finance and banking litigation to appellate litigation, some types of litigation that I found extremely boring, and then finally got a taste of personal injury work on the defense side. And I just kind of thought, this is really where I'm meant to be, like the personal injury field in general. And so started doing more and more personal injury and decided with a good friend of mine named Trek Doyle, after about, 7 or 8 years of working with him, to launch our own firm, which we did in 2015. And we actually did a fair amount of plaintiff's personal injury work, which I think, I can say this in hindsight now, every defense lawyer, I think, would be very well served to do some plaintiff's work. I really think you get a real respect and a little bit of education of what that side of the V has to go through. One of the main things that I took away from it is when you're the plaintiff's lawyer on the case, you're not just the attorney on the case. You are the plaintiff's counselor. You're helping facilitate medical treatment. You're, potentially helping them figure out how in the heck they're going to make ends meet while they can't work and they have all these. So I think going through that process of handling those cases really helped me better understand some of the dynamics that perhaps some of your listeners, have to deal with on a day-to-day, case-to-case basis.
And then you decided, I don't want to do anymore.
Well, I decided to. So it was kind of interesting the way it happened. And I really do sometimes feel like a plaintiff's lawyer trapped at my own defense firm because, I'm one of the founders. We had a lot of prior relationships from being at Winstead and also a lot of hooks in the water with large companies, as well as some insurance companies, third-party administrators. And when we started our firm, at first, some of those relationships weren't turning into work, but there was a lot of hooks in the water, so to speak. And eventually, one after the other started coming in with, hey, we'd like to retain you to represent this company, or we'd like you to defend this employer. And I think it's extremely difficult to kind of ride the fence and represent both injured plaintiffs and defendants. It's not impossible. There are some firms that do it. They tend to be really small firms or maybe solos. I think it's really hard. And it just felt to me that we needed to pick one. And the one that for me was the best business fit was helping these employers in particular defend against workplace injury claims. So in Texas, as you know, and some of your listeners probably know as well, you don't have to have workers' comp. And if you make that trade-off and you don't have it, you expose your company to negligence claims in state court or federal court. And so we defend a lot of those household name companies, Fortune 500 companies, when they get sued on personal injury cases in Texas, and go up against a lot of great lawyers. Not so great, but most of the ones we go up against, I have a ton of respect for and really enjoy working with cases with them.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate the background and letting us know it. And, it is true that when I was interning during law school at a defense firm, like they had one person, because you have to really seal everything off. And only one person was allowed to do any plaintiff's personal injury work, everybody else to defend. So that makes sense. And again, you kind of got to pick your poison and go with it, whether it be plaintiffs or defense work. But we're here to talk about this other super cool tool that you've created. So tell us about Skribe and what it is.
Well, so I'll tell you about the inspiration for it first. So I've taken and defended, hundreds of depositions in my career. And one of the things that a couple of takeaways from that, one is you should video all of your depositions. And if you're not, you're doing yourself a disservice, you're doing the case a disservice. And the reasons for that there's a lot of good reasons for it. But one is video is the most powerful form of evidence in a case. And I truly believe that not only do juries expect to see it, but I think judges actually enjoy seeing it. No one wants to see a witness or a fake witness, for example. And what I mean by that is someone just get up and read a deposition transcript because a witness isn't available. So we're literally reading questions and answers, which, believe it or not, still happens, versus playing the video of the actual witness. So it really helps inform everything from demand letters during a case as it's going on, to be able to put video clips in your demand to kind of bolster it. On the defense side, I use the video in reporting to my clients. So as I was handling all these depositions and videoing them, I was kind of like, I found myself in this problem of not having a really easy and simple way to create video clips and share those clips, whether I wanted to share it with the court or with my client or in a response letter to opposing counsel's demand. And so one of the inspirations for Skribe was making it super simple to create and share video evidence, primarily testimony or other forms of video evidence, body cam videos, recorded statements, whatever it may be. So that was one of the things that kind of inspired me to start Skribe, was that problem. The other piece of it was I started realizing just how much money my clients were spending on depositions, and particularly realized that pain point when I started doing plaintiff's cases, where I was the one fronting, the bill, so to speak, on the case and paying those court reporting fees and those videographer fees. And I thought to myself, God, there's got to be a better way to do this. Like, surely we can use technology to speed up and simplify and reduce the cost to take a deposition, to capture legal testimony. So that was the second reason, was really cost. And then the third was, I'd go sit in all these depositions, and I'd find myself and my team, as we've grown now, we've got 15 attorneys at my firm. I'd found this common problem of, okay, when was that deposition taken? Why don't we have the transcript yet? Where is the video? Like, why am I still having to track down things weeks or maybe sometimes a month or more later so that I can then go through it and clip it or whatever I need to do with it? And, I kind of thought to myself, not only do I think we can solve the cost problem, we ought to be able to serve up a copy of the record synced to a transcript the same day a deposition takes place. I mean, there's no reason with today's software that we shouldn't be able to do that. So those are the things that my own frustrations with the process that led to the founding of Skribe.
I mean, so I know technically when it's Skribe, when did it come out of the closet? When did it officially launch? Because that was another thing I was really curious about.
Yeah, sure. So the company was founded about 2 years ago. The first year was a lot of discovery work, due diligence, development work. We actually launched the product itself, and I'll get into kind of what the product is and what it does in just a second, last year. So it's been about a year to a year and a half. I don't remember the exact date off the top of my head, but I guess it's been roughly 18 months since we launched the product. And so there's two products currently with Skribe. We have Skribe Live, which is for capturing live testimony, such as depositions. And then we have Skribe Library, which is a way to upload any audio or video file you have in your case and get a transcript and be able to search it and clip it and easily share those clips. So those are kind of the two sides to the house. They're very complementary. Anytime you take a live event, it ends up in your library. But it, my firm uses it. We have, I think at this point, over 200 firms that have used it. We've done over almost 1,000 depositions over the last year and a half. So it's beginning to take off. And it's really cool to see some of the feedback that we get that kind of validates the problem that I was experiencing, and that people, that it resonates, that people they're tired of spending too much money. They're tired of waiting on a copy of their record. They're realizing that there are really awesome things that software and technology allow us to do, such as creating video clips just by highlighting text, putting those clips in demand letters to make them more persuasive, or briefs to make them more compelling. And that's really just tip of the iceberg. We have some other really cool features that we just launched recently that we can talk about in a minute. But yeah, it's kind of off to the races. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. And the reason why was because I knew it was after, kind of the pandemic and lawyers every lawyer having to use Zoom no matter what to do hearings and whatnot. And I know that thinking through adoption of technology and lawyers is like oil and vinegar. It's really, really, you got to force us to really do that. And so the almost precipitous timing of Skribe and how many people realizing wow. And then also the cost, right? The court reporter cost, the videographer cost. And I just remember in the, right when, we had the shutdown, and I was on a representative on a group for Travis County trying to figure out how do we keep trials going. Right. And, we had all these ideas. And one of the things, the court reporters were like, wait a second, what about us? Because, eliminating that person to person, really was a struggle for them. And of course, many of the ideas just really weren't going to work for anybody. And luckily we did have, there was a Zoom trial. There were some Zoom trials that came along after that. So, you guys obviously 200 folks and growing. And I think that's amazing. I loved that when I went to your website and visited, you've got a lot of awesome resources, but I just, having the twofold, having the library, because there are still a lot of folks who need that technology that took those depots before, right? Cases are so backlogged, they can upload that stuff, have it synced to cut those clips and make life so much easier when you're getting ready for trial. And then obviously starting your depots now with Skribe to make it easier for, and cheaper to do that. So tell us a little bit about, kind of talked about the problems it's solving. What's the feedback you're getting? What's the pushback that you get too?
Yeah. So we hit on a couple of things that I'm going to come back to, but I'll answer your question first. The pushback is really one that is more education related. And that's the concept of not all attorneys realize that non-stenographic depositions are permitted in most states, not all. In Texas, in federal court, in over 40 states, non-stenographic depositions are permitted. Most of them are by rule. There are some that require stipulation, but Texas federal court, as well as, I think it's over 30, it's permitted by the rules. So, there's an education component to this, because sometimes the knee-jerk reaction is, what do you mean you're going to use Skribe to record this through Zoom and there's not going to be a court reporter? How does that work? And so we kind of have to explain, here's the legal rules and why it's permissible. And we have material that we can share with, and we do share with all of our customers on that explain it's been around for a long time. It's actually been around since the 90s. And historically, if you think back to, depositions being recorded either with an old school video camera only sometimes, or over the phone even, but it just hasn't been utilized as much because, again, pre-COVID, these depositions were in person. You kind of needed someone to either type it or set up video equipment to record it. Now we can use, modern software and computers to do some of that for us. The other piece of this is, in addition to educating not only our customers, but sometimes the opposing counsel on why this is permitted, we also have to educate them on, well, how does it actually work? And so that's where we get into, look, this is not generative AI. It's not just making up words that it thinks someone said. We are video and audio recording the testimony. There is a certified notary supervising the entire process end to end. There's redundant recording to make sure that there's a backup copy of all the audio and the video in case one of the recordings were to fail, which, knock on wood, hasn't actually happened. But there's redundancy baked into the process. And then we're using proven ASR, automated speech recognition, to generate the rough transcript that is available within about an hour to two of the deposition. And then within 5 days, that gets human proofread and verified and legally formatted so that the same week, no rush fee, no extra cost, the same week you actually get a accurate final transcript that looks just like the transcripts you're used to seeing that you can file with the court if you need it. So I think a big part of it is education. The other piece of it you touched on, which was COVID and kind of how that shifted the market. I don't think we would be having this conversation if COVID had not happened because, again, the way we're approaching this market is with a remote first approach for purposes of hosting live events. And that's what enables us to provide this solution to attorneys because everybody has a laptop in front of them. We can isolate, for the most part, the audio to each participant, and we're able to capture, a quality recording that we can then generate a transcript off of and proofread that transcript. So it's, there's a lot of bad things that came with COVID for sure, but I do think that the legal industry as a whole has gotten a lot more efficient as a result of COVID. And I actually believe, and I think we're seeing firsthand that attorneys are more willing to try new things and adopt new technology as a result of COVID. Now, I will say, not every single deposition in the entire legal industry is right for Zoom. Not everyone maybe is right for non-stenographic. There is a place for stenographers in our legal industry, and there's absolutely cases where in-person depositions do make sense. We just believe that that's in a minority of cases, that the vast majority, 70 to 80%, maybe as high as 90%, are just fine over Zoom, and that the benefits, the efficiencies that you get far outweigh, what people think they get from that in-person experience.
Absolutely. And of course, I think a lot of my focus groups are virtual. So I am totally with you on sometimes there is a barrier to this must be done in person. And it's like, well, it doesn't. And I mean, you've been on the other side too, to know if you want to go take the other driver and they're in Austin too, go for it. But right. What about those experts that are in California and New York and Washington? It's like, wow, you end up, paying for time, but then also just that travel and the extra stuff. And plus, I was going to say the other thing I think is we just have a real big shortage of court reporters.
Yeah.
And it's.
I had actually typed a note to not forget to mention that. You touched on the timing. The timing was important because of COVID. But there also is a legitimate shortage of court reporters, and it's getting worse, not better. Now, the size of the shortage is probably up for debate. The NCRA, National Court Reporters Association, had reported it to be, I think, 7,000 to 8,000 short court reporters based on demand. There's been rumblings, well, maybe that was overestimated. The point is, young people in their 20s and maybe 30s aren't going to stenography school at the rate that they used to, even though the number of claims, the number of litigated files continues to go up. So, it is absolutely a classic supply and demand problem, and it's only going to get worse, which means we need alternative solutions, which is where a software-driven solution like Skribe can help solve that and help provide a cost-effective alternative to the market. And, I think that the other thing that it brings that I see, particularly as a business owner, so if any of your listeners, are law firm owners or kind of equity partners, you realize that speed is important, right? That the faster you turn cases at your firm, the more cases your team can handle. Now, obviously, you want to do it with quality, right? You don't want to just rush through it just to rush through it. But every delay adds up. Right. So if you're waiting a month or 3 or 4 weeks just to get a copy of this transcript, or you have to pay double or triple to get it faster, that has a cumulative effect, either in cost to get a rush copy or in time waiting on, you to get a copy of this transcript so that you can move on to whatever the next step is, whether it's a motion, whether it's the next deposition. So I think, the way we look at it at Skribe is speed is not just important, it's a requirement. And so we put that kind of at the top of what we do. And a lot of attorneys that have joined, and not just the attorneys, the paralegals, the other legal support staff members, they appreciate that with Skribe, they don't have to wait. They don't have to ask, where's the transcript or when will I get this? You get it the same day. And so you're able to we had one attorney, actually San Antonio personal injury attorney, great lawyer. I've had cases against him. He took a deposition with Skribe in the morning of a witness and then had another one that afternoon. Well, during the afternoon deposition, he used video clips that he created from the morning deposition. And the defense lawyers, their mind was blown. They were like, we don't how did you do that? How did you get it that fast? But, literally that is possible with Skribe. You get it that fast that you could take a deposition in the morning and over the lunch break, start to chop it up, process it, and later that same day, use clips from the deposition in the next one. That may not be something you need to do all the time, but it's nice to have that option.
Well, sure. And I'm imagining a disputed liability situation where it's like, these are the two key witnesses and they're going back to back. And like at the time you think, ooh, great, we're going to knock this all out. But then you don't think, ooh, well, how do I then really, if there's a problem, solve it with being able to show them, hey, here's what the other person said. And this obviously solves that problem, being able to say, hey, literally, this is what they said, but watch the video. This is how they said it,
Yes, how they said it. That's exactly right. What's the body language? What's the tone? What's the look on their face? Those are things that are not only important for attorneys to know and understand, those are important things for us to be able to convey to our clients, to show our experts, for what you do, to show a focus group, right? One of the things that Skribe enables, and we've had some of our attorneys use it for this purpose, historically, video was underutilized. Why? Well, it's the frustration I was telling you about earlier. Is because historically, video has been a pain in the you-know-what to work with, difficult to chop up unless you took the time and effort to train on some movie maker software or video editing software, or you had some, computer nerd in your office who could chop it up for you, or you outsourced it and paid someone else to do it, all of which slows you down. And I think by making video so simple to clip and share, if you can, to your listeners, if you can highlight a PDF, you can create a video clip with Skribe. If you know how to copy and paste a website address, you can share that clip with Skribe. So it really is just super, super simple. And the one thing that I do want to emphasize that we haven't talked about yet, step one was making it easier to capture testimony, share the video clips. And we've done that, and we're growing that. And that continues to be a big focus of ours. How can we do that better? Step two, though, is we want to help legal professionals analyze that testimony. And so we just launched an AI-powered chat and analysis tool where you can go into a deposition, whether you took it with Skribe or you took it with someone else and you just uploaded the video into your Skribe account. Either way, you can then query that transcript and ask it any question you want to ask it. What did the witness say about topic X? How did the witness perform? How do you think they play to a jury? Based on this testimony, draft sample discovery that I should send to the other party on the following issues, or what you think are the top 5 issues. And the AI will analyze the transcript and within seconds, not only give you an answer, but the answer includes sourced video clips. So if I ask the chatbot, how did the witness describe the injuries that they suffered as a result of this accident and how it's impacted their life? Rather than me having to go search through the transcript, it's going to summarize what the witness said on those 2 issues, and it's going to create video clips. Witness explains, can no longer go bowling or play with their kids or whatever it may be. So I can see the summary and click the video to watch where the witness actually testified about this topic. So we actually just launched that just 2 weeks ago and are just starting to get feedback on it. I've actually used it in my firm for about the last month, and it's just such a time saver. I think I really believe that feature alone is going to be the dominant way that attorneys search their depositions. Forget keyword search, forget the indexes at the back that we used to use of the PDF or the printed, binder copy. You can now find exactly what you need just by asking the software, and it's going to pull it up, summarize it, and give you a clip of the corresponding segment.
And so for folks like wondering, okay, well, is this, and I feel kind of fancy because I just learned this. Is it in a silo by itself? Like nobody else, unlike if you go to Google Gemini or ask, I'm going to say Ask Jeeves, but that's a long time ago, Elizabeth. That's not. But is it in like you got to log in online? It's in my repository or it's in my online storage, and then it stays there. It doesn't actually have access to anything inside the internet to pull an answer for you.
So there's a couple of parts to your question. So I'll answer the first part of your question first, which is, I think, more data privacy focused, if I was understand what you were getting at. We do not use anything that is submitted to Skribe to train large language models or to train, some other law firms like customized model. So we're not, in other words, we're not using questions that are submitted to or data that's submitted to train the AI. The model's already been trained, and we're not using fresh data to train the model. And then the second part of your question, I've admittedly forgotten.
It's in a silo, meaning like there, what is in there, my depositions are private, and then me using the bot that also, it's in its own, unlike if I go to Google Gemini, like it's going to take anything I put in there, and none of that is actually private.
Yeah, okay. Your question, you used the term, well, you used it correctly, but I was thinking, I'll explain what I was thinking just a second. The answer to your question is your data is not shared with anyone else. The data that you submit isn't used to benefit or provide access to some other firm. Like, in other words, if you submit a deposition transcript of some expert witness or something that is extremely confidential, you don't have to worry about that showing up in some other firm's answer when they chat with some transcript, even if it's the same expert, right? It doesn't become a part of the source material for the large language model. So hopefully that answers your question. Now, one thing that we do plan to do in the future, we don't have this yet, but in the future, we do plan to offer custom law firm models to where you could begin to train your own law firm's model and feed it more and more and more data so that you can get siloed just for your firm, customized answers. And so, step one is to get something useful in users' hands, see what they like, what do they not like. One thing that our team at Skribe does a great job of is listening to customers. So, if some of your listeners want to test this, let me know. I can get them set up to test it, and let us know, what do you like? What's missing? What do you wish was a little bit different or better? Or, does it solve your need? I know, it solves a lot of mine, but every attorney has kind of a different wish list of the things that they like or that they want to see. Some of the things that are on the roadmap are the ability to search across the entire case. So to be able to basically figure out, like, for example, did this witness testify in a way that's consistent with these other witnesses, and have the AI analyze across multiple transcripts and spot either consistencies or inconsistencies or things like that. So, a big part of Skribe's mission is to really change and modernize, again, not only how we capture and share testimony, but also how we analyze it. So we're looking at all the different ways that we as a company can help attorneys and their teams do a better job at taking the depositions, do a better job at analyzing those depositions, and hopefully do it at a lower cost than what they've been paying the last 10 years. Because the price to take a deposition the old-fashioned way really has gotten super expensive.
Yeah, it's extremely cost prohibitive if you are running a solo to small size firm. I mean, it's really difficult, especially like some of the costs for all the stuff. And so, yeah, I mean, I think Skribe definitely solves, an efficiency, a cost perspective, but also I think a lot of people, I think you'd be surprised how many people still do not videotape depositions. And I'm in the camp with you. I mean, I learned very early on, videotape everything. And this really gives actually an opportunity for solo small firms to video everything via Zoom. So let me ask you a look, because sometimes this happens, and this may or may not have happened to you before, but I've seen some video clips where you may have a witness who, they are using their iPhone and they're in a car doing a deposition. the video technology? Is it just kind of like, hey, whoever shows up and how they show up, you're just kind of stuck with that? Or is there any way to really kind of modify that?
Yeah, so it's a great question. So two parts to that. One, we're not as a software company going to modify anything that's recorded. So, we're going to be not only preserving and saving, we also certify, like through an affidavit, the authenticity of the non-stenographic record, which is the recording in any digital exhibits. Now, the first part of that is more of a threshold issue. What is an acceptable level of quality in audio and video? And we do have standards. And that's one of the reasons that right now we call them liaisons, the certified notaries that help facilitate the event end to end. They have standards that they follow to make sure that the people that need to be on camera, that the witness is framed, that the audio quality is strong, and will interrupt politely if there is a problem along the way. If someone's audio connection drops or their video feed drops or staggers, no technology is perfect. No human is perfect, right? I mean, I get stenographer transcripts, or I used to when we were using more traditional court reporting methods, that did have mistakes in them from time to time. I would say more often than not, I would find some type of mistake. Now, sometimes it wasn't a big deal. Occasionally it was a big deal. The nice thing about doing non-stenographic depositions is you have the audio and video. So that's kind of the source of truth. That's one of the big reasons I'm such a fan of the video. Not only does it convey the tone, the look on the face, all those other things that maybe you don't get from the text on the page, but it's also the source of truth. Like if there's a dispute about what a transcript says, we'll just play back the video. So I think it's a great solution. There's no perfect solution. There's pros and cons with everything. There's trade-offs. But I really do believe that the future of how we capture testimony and analyze it is going to be software powered. That doesn't mean there won't be a human component. Again, stenographers absolutely have a place in the industry. Proofreading by a human absolutely has a place in the industry. But what we're seeing through real users is the quality of the rough AI transcript has gotten so high that you can get the substance, analyze it, clip it, share it, do all of the things that you really need to do to move the case from point A to point B without ever even looking at the final transcript, and really only use the final transcript if you need to file something with the court or if the case is actually going to trial and it's time to start doing your page and line video cuts and page and line designations.
Mm-hmm. I just want to echo something you said, because this is a huge fear point for a lot of lawyers. Because all we do in virtual focus groups, we have and that is like using the technology. So the ability that I just want to echo it, because Skribe provides a person who will help you with your setup, your witnesses setup, and make sure that they sound clear. That is amazing. That is such a huge bonus point, because I know there are lots of times, because we all had to kind of start using, notaries on Zoom, and they just get in there and get out. They don't help you. So that is a huge bonus to have someone, if you are worried as a lawyer, because sometimes we forget, oh my gosh, share screen or things like that. And so having somebody else in the room was always going to be there to help with, and making sure the lighting is right. And the square, that is so helpful, especially you don't necessarily always want to be that person who says, hey, witness who you don't know, but I'm a lawyer. I need you to turn the light on in front of you, where, it makes it a little bit easier for the lawyer to have that off their shoulders.
Yeah. And the company, Skribe tries to be very customer focused and friendly in how we handle those issues. For example, if this were a deposition and our audio and video connection kept going in and out and in and out, the way we handle it is we just offer to reschedule at no cost. Look, do we need to figure out a different day, or does someone need to drive to a different location to get a stronger internet signal? I mean, we really want to make sure that the clients being the scheduling attorney and the opposing attorney have a good experience with Skribe, get a quality recording, and ultimately see the benefits of our solution that we offer, not only the speed, not only the cost savings, but some of the other things that we talked about that will help them analyze and use their video in ways that maybe they don't even imagine. I mean, I remember the first time I filed something, actually it was a mediation position statement, and I had sent this mediation position statement, and there was quite a bit of deposition testimony in this case that was pretty critical. and I'd put video clips into the letter, into the Word document. And we've got tutorials on how to do that. It really is simple. It takes seconds. But I had pulled up Microsoft Word on one side of my monitor, the Skribe app on the other side of the monitor, and created these clips. And I remember showing up to mediation, and the mediator was just like, what, how in the world did you do that? I'd never seen, like, that was so helpful for me to be able to actually watch the witnesses testify about the key issues in the case. Not only did I get the substance, but I was able to gauge, my perception of their credibility, how they presented, how they might present to a jury. And so it's kind of like, I'm a techie, so I always, I've used technology for so long, you start to take certain things for granted. But I do have to remind myself, as well as the Skribe team from time to time, that a lot of people have never done this. They've never seen it, video used this way. Maybe they've never even used AI chat in their business life at all, like to analyze anything, much less a deposition transcript. So again, that kind of goes back to the education component of this. And one thing that we offer is webinars for any law firms. Like, we'll come in, and typically it's a Zoom-based webinar where we will explain, how the software works, the ways that you can leverage it in your practice. And we even have some CLE accredited webinars as well, where you can get some credit. Even, I think one of them even has ethics credit too. So it's a lot of fun.
Well, I know that, the website itself, and we'll put like links in the show notes and all that good stuff, has so much good information on it. So if somebody wanted to get started, like, what's the best way to get started if they're still curious? Like, tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so two very easy options. So one, you could literally just go to the website, which is Skribe, SKRIBE.ai, and you could click schedule now at the top of the page and fill out the information with your email, the date of your depo, and the name of your witness. And that would kick off an email to our support team and get you in the hopper, so to speak. The other option is they can email me. I'm happy to take an email and, kind of do a handheld introduction to our team. My email is Karl, also with a K, at skribe.ai. So either one, if they mention your show, we're happy to provide a discount as well for their first deposition or their first upload. If they want to just upload an existing video, whether it's a deposition or some other type of video, they're welcome to kick the tires that way. And we'll provide a discount to any of your listeners on their first Skribe usage. But I will say that I think that one thing that you mentioned that I want to maybe mention to your listeners is attorneys who aren't videoing their depositions. I completely understand the pain point of you've signed up for a deposition with court reporting company A, B, whoever they are, and you're annoyed or frustrated that to get a video copy of the deposition, you can't just press record on the Zoom, or the court reporter won't just press the record button on the Zoom, and that they want to charge you an additional substantial fee to have a videographer sit in and just press the record button on the Zoom, in addition to sending a court reporter to sit there and type the transcript. And really, that is one of the other frustrations that led to the founding of Skribe. That exact scenario happened to me about 3 years ago, where a court reporter, she was very nice. It wasn't her fault. She was just the worker bee that had been sent to type the transcript. I asked her if she could press record on this expert witness doctor deposition. And she just said, well, they won't let me do that, and I don't see that a videographer signed up to be here today. Anyway, long story short, there'd been a miscommunication, and, they were going to have to reschedule the deposition, pay a rescheduling fee. And I finally just got fed up, and I was working with a plaintiff's firm out of Houston, and they were very cooperative. And I said, why don't we just hop on my Zoom line? I'll record it and I'll share a video with you, me, and I'll share a copy with the court reporter. And so we did that. And the very next day, I picked up the phone and called my co-founder at Skribe, Tom Irby, and said, okay, it's time to start this company. Like, this is BS. There has to be a better way.
Yeah, that is, so many, that particular irritation is really one of the things that I think has just really gotten out of hand with, just the cost of pursuing a case, and then having like just this little nickel and dime. Oh, well, you can't push the button, like really, turned a lot of people off. And again, like you said, there's totally a place for court reporters, 100%. But some of those practices that have been happening after the pandemic was just like, oh, wow. Oh, so I'm glad that you brought up that pain point, because I know a lot of people listening have had that exact feeling of like, wait, what? I can't just push this little button here. Like, no.
The other this is just some free advice to your plaintiff lawyer listeners. And this is not, the goal here is not to necessarily intentionally complement what you do or kind of feed you more work. But one of the things that I tell plaintiffs lawyers is I get these demand letters, right? And I had, my team has a lot of cases. We're sifting through these settlement demand letters that, have big numbers in them. And one of the things that I truly do believe genuinely is underutilized is two pieces of advice I'll give your listeners. One, putting data in your settlement demand to help justify your numbers. You can get the information. Go do a verdict search on a verdict search tool and get some sample jury verdicts, or, if you have access to, sample arbitrator awards, whether that's through TTLA or some other listserv that you can get some examples, maybe redacted with party names, but some examples of what some arbitrators have done in similar cases, or jury verdicts or bench trials. That really does help when a defense lawyer has to go in and justify their ask as to why am I recommending this settlement range? It's not just numbers that have been thrown into a demand letter. The plaintiff's lawyers actually spent the time and trouble of putting some data into their demand. We may not agree with it. We may find some other examples that are more favorable to our side, but at least it's real numbers. And then the other piece of advice I would give your listeners is not every single case across your entire docket probably merits doing a focus group or a study group, but there's a lot of them that do. And it's amazing like what you can do if you take modern technology, like some of the tools we've talked about today, and create a highlight reel of, look, we've now taken 5, 10, 15 depositions, whatever. Create a highlight reel of all those key testimony, the key moments, put that together along with kind of, an opening, closing, whatever else you want to do, and get it in front of some people in the real world and see what they think. And, you may get some gems from that and that you can then use and put in your demand letter and say, hey, we have focus grouped this case. And look, here is why we're demanding X million or whatever it may be. We're not just making this number up or pulling it out of thin air. We have gone to the trouble of actually pulling verdict samples. We've gone to the trouble of doing a focus group. And here is the feedback that we've gotten. And I think if, attorneys would roll up their sleeves and do that work, they'll be surprised at some of the results. I really believe they'll get higher settlements as a result if they do that, instead of just, again, not all attorneys do this, but I get so many demands that are just fluff, super inflated medicals without any, they come across as detached from reality. And it makes it difficult for me to do my job if I don't have some concrete examples or, some focus group feedback, something that I can go to my, whether it's an in-house counsel or a risk manager or a third-party administrator, whoever it is that I'm reporting to, and say, here's what they're going to present, and here's kind of where they're coming from, and here's the work that they put in to get there. So anyway, I just wanted to share that with you. I've gone on a couple of other podcasts where the audience tends to be plaintiffs' lawyers. And selfishly, part of the reason that I offer that advice is it makes my job easier as a defense lawyer when I have to digest all this and report it, up the chain to the people that I work with.
I think you kind of nailed it when you said you got to show your work. And, unfortunately, this is not necessarily always true, but it can be that it's just a form demand letter with some zero stuff. And it really does make your job difficult. And that's what I always tell people is like, listen, you can't just you got to show, you got to show them. And so I appreciate you saying that. And again, the verdict search is super easy. Join a database, it will pay for itself like over and over and over again, because we mediate every case, right? So, if you're going to mediation or doing that, then of course, I personally, of course, love focus groups.
And not to beat a dead horse, but just know that like the person that actually controls the purse strings probably did not sit in on the depositions and probably doesn't have the time in their schedule to watch an entire deposition video start to finish. And the defense lawyer may or may not actually have the technical skill or competence or someone on their team to show clips of the deposition video. So if you have an extremely sympathetic client, right, who testified in a way that everybody would love or sympathize with or whatever it may be, or you crucified the corporate representative for the other side and the person looked angry or like a lying liar or whatever it may be, you just got this really good deposition testimony and made them look like crap, on video, or your witness is amazing. Take the time to create some clips of that, put it in your demand letter so that the people that are actually authorizing the settlement authority on your case see it, right? So that they have the ability to quickly and easily click a link and watch it. Because it's one thing for me to tell an in-house attorney or claims manager that I think the witness came across as very sympathetic, or I think our defense witness did not present well, and that I don't think they're going to be the best witness for us. It's an entirely different thing to show them and let them watch it for themselves and make their own assessment. And so, again, it kind of comes back to one thing we started the show with, which is, video is such a powerful form of evidence. And I think that with modern tools, with using focus groups, you can really leverage video in ways that, historically took a lot of time and money to do. You can do it a lot more effectively and efficiently now with software.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, we are a society of videos. The number 2, I think, search engine is YouTube. We are a video, we expect it.
Right.
So that makes sense. Putting in your demand letters. I love the idea you said earlier as well. Send it to your mediators, they're going to appreciate that, especially hey, I got 5 clips. It's going to take you less than 5 minutes. It'll tell you everything you need to know about the case. Perfect. Save everyone some time. So, well, awesome. Karl, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I know that Skribe is going to solve so many awesome problems, but the number one being let's get video testimony and let's make it at a reasonable price. As long as also syncing, I think that's also super helpful if you have depots that have not been synced yet. So we will put your email, we'll get the website put in there. And the only other plug I want to say is, again, the website is so helpful. And one of the cool things they already have up there for anybody who wants it are notices, literally verbatim notices for states where people are using Skribe. So don't even worry about having to create a new notice. They already have it up there on the website for you. So you guys are taking a lot of pain out of using this new awesome tool. And I really appreciate that.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you having me on the show and giving me a chance to explain a little bit about, what Skribe does, but also why it exists. Why in the world did we start the company? What problems are we trying to solve? And, hopefully some of that resonates with your audience.
I think it absolutely will, because I can tell you those are definitely some pain points that we have, speaking collectively as a plaintiff's lawyer. So again, thank you so much, Karl, for joining the podcast. And I hope everybody takes a chance to go to Skribe and take a look at it, maybe use it for your next deposition. And until next time, thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed the podcast, please share it with somebody, but also rate, review on your favorite podcast platform. And until next time, thank you.